Hey, you're probably looking for the Masked Swingers, but we rebranded. We're called the Unmasked Project now. It's still Brian, still Layla, no mask, great guests. If you want to find us, just look in the description and you'll find all the clips you've been looking for and more. We'll see you over there. Hey everyone, today's guest is someone that has a unique voice and a unique story that we think you're going to enjoy. Her name is Vudu Dahl. She is a sex worker, a kink expert. She even runs her own erotic wellness brand called Dalier. Today we're going to talk about her whole background, how she grew up in a cult, how she escaped that cult, how she used that background to inform the work that she does now. And you're even going to get some tips and tricks about how to be in your own body to support yourself through any sort of trauma you're working through. If that sounds interesting to you, then don't turn away. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and let's hop on in. Vudu,
Hi.
welcome to the show.
I'm so excited to be here.
I'm
Thanks
so
for having
excited.
me.
We're excited. Thanks for reaching out to us. And I don't even know, how'd you find out about the podcast?
Oh my God. So we have a lot of mutual friends. So I've seen like a lot of my friends like on the podcast and I was like, oh my God. So I just decided to just message you guys and hopefully get on. And
so
now I'm here.
She slid into the
glad.
DMs.
I sure
In
did.
the email DMs, actually, old school
Oh,
DMs.
I did both
So
actually.
You did both?
She sent us
And-
a fax.
And we were pumped about it. I think I've been on a party bus with you before, though.
You have?
Really?
I think I have been. I think it was to Odessa. Did you take a party bus to Odessa?
Oh my God. When was this? Because I know I went to a rave concert, but I don't remember which one it
It's
was.
like last summer at the, oh man.
What, was Ken on there? Ken Feels?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So, oh my God. Wait.
Yeah.
Do you remember?
Yes. Oh my God. I was high. So I don't really
Yeah.
remember.
Oh no,
Yeah.
everyone. So, because y'all all, we didn't go on the party bus. We rode home on the party bus with y'all. And when we ran into everyone, we're like, they are all on something that we're
Yeah.
not on.
Yes.
And then we went to a house afterwards.
Yeah,
but I
in the
have been-
hills.
In the hills, yeah.
Yep.
And so I have
Oh
been
my
on a party
God.
bus. But yeah, it's fine. Nice
That's
to meet you
wild.
again.
Nice to meet you too.
Do you remember? I don't know if you remember the first time and only time we ever met in person. You might not even remember.
Probably not.
It
Tell
was
me.
at, I'll cut the name. It was at pool party.
Yes. Mhm.
And I saw you walk in and I was like, oh my God, I follow that girl on social media because your tattoo work is so fucking insane. So you've
Thank
been on my
you.
list for tattoos and also you're gorgeous. And I came up to you, I was like, hi, I'm Layla. I follow you on Instagram. I just think you're really pretty and you were so nice and sweet. But that was like 2 years ago. But
Oh my God. That's what a small world.
right?
Yeah,
So
small
I've
city.
been watching you from afar.
That's the other
Aw.
way I know you. So I'm good friends with Katie. We can
Mhm.
cut her name if we need to, but I don't think she'll care. And you started doing some tattoo work for her.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
did something Memento Mori or something like that. Or
Right,
Mori.
on her forum. Have you seen that on
I
her?
have
And
seen
you
that.
did that plus some other stuff.
Yeah.
Are you gonna get any new tattoos anytime soon?
Yeah, do you want to tattoo me?
I would love that. We're actually
Okay.
doing a Friday the 13th like tattoo flash day
Uh-huh.
at my shop Mad Rabbit in downtown. So
What
yeah,
is
you should come
what
through.
is the deal?
I think it's like 100 and I don't remember. It's like between 100 and 250 or whatever, depending on how many you get.
I
But
don't
yeah.
care. Here is a blank check with my name on it. Touch my body.
I would love that.
Okay, cool.
So this is so fun. What's so funny is this isn't even on the list of things to talk
Well,
about today.
yeah,
is
no, that's-
tattoos.
Yeah, that's
Story
okay.
of my
Yeah.
life.
But obviously you've done great work with your art. Have you
Thank
done any
you.
of your own?
I have. I think one of the last ones that I did was this.
Oh, whoa.
Does this say
Wait,
cunt?
can you
It
turn to
does.
the camera?
That's so dope. Oh, that's your camera right there.
You
Oh, there. Okay.
Oh, girl.
did that one by yourself?
I did. Yeah. It was like during the pandemic and it was bored and not a ton of people were getting tattooed. And I was like, well, I'm at the shop and I have a machine. I might as well tattoo myself. So I did. And then I also tattooed my tongue. It was like a smiley face. Like like I just wanted to do like a little stick figure smiley face. That faded, of course. And then I
Here,
did
come
my
here real quick.
chest. Thank you.
Not hot
Thank
at all.
you.
I just like stick my
Disgusting.
fingers in her mouth.
Disgusting.
Just like,
I'm
oh my
appalled.
God.
I'm appalled that
I
you
mean, I
did that
wouldn't
live on
mind
the show. But so why would a tattoo in the tongue fade?
So the tongue is like, it's constantly regenerating. So just like with the hands, it's like the hands, you constantly have to get them touched up because you're washing your hands. The cells are constantly rejuvenating. Same thing with the tongue. I'm actually surprised how long this one lasts because generally it does tend to fade. You have to get it touched up. But yeah, that's just
The inside of the lip. Okay, so inside, so the tongue, inside the lip. When you say hands, you mean the palms?
yeah. Oh, the hands too. I mean, you're always washing them. I had mine done. I think like 3, 4 times, especially my fingers.
Uh-huh.
Yeah,
So
they
which
fade.
are you right-handed or left-handed?
Uh,
Left
wait,
L.
I know I have to do this.
I always do that when someone's like turn left. I'm like, ooh.
What? I didn't know that'd be I mean that
I literally can never. I literally have to do this. Okay, this is left.
okay, yeah, this is left. This is right. Which hand do you
So
you're
right-handed.
right-handed.
Yeah.
Okay. So can we guess which one you've done on your anything you've done would be on your left hand on or your leg, right? Or your
Mhm.
legs. Um,
Sometimes the right too, just depending on where.
wait, what?
Yeah.
Sometimes the
So
right
I've
leg.
done.
Oh, I was gonna say
Yeah.
like there's no way you can write on your right arm with your
Yeah. No.
otherwise we have a whole nother conversation to have here. But anyway, glad you're on the show, learning so much
Thank
about
you.
tattoos. But
Mhm.
one of the big reasons we wanted to have you on is like we always we love unmasking topics, right?
Yeah.
And something that we always love talking about is, and we mentioned it in passing because we've had like some former Mormons come on the show and stuff like that, is cults.
Mhm.
And when you reached out, you were like, one of the interesting things about me is that I was in a cult,
Mhm.
and in fact, I'm related to the person who started the cult.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to just jump right in because that is a wild story. All right.
Yeah.
So first of all, who started the cult you were in?
So it was actually my stepfather. So my mother met him when I was 1, or actually they had been. He was dating her best friend. Her best friend died in a car accident, and then the two of them got together. And so together they had 13 kids. And so just from the time that, I was 1, that was pretty much like my upbringing. He believed that he was the Antichrist. He believed that he was sent from Earth or whatever, wherever the fuck. And it was his destiny to conquer the world basically. Like he had a very inflated sense of a very inflated ego, I guess. And so yeah, like he wrote his own Bible, created his own religion that was pretty much based off of his egotistical and misogynistic, narcissistic, homophobic beliefs basically. And so that was pretty much what we were forced to participate in.
Is there a name to this cult?
Yeah, so
You don't have to say it if you don't want
yeah, no, it's
to.
okay. So he changed our last name legally and then made it okay, it was called the House of Moreau. And so he basically felt that we were descendants from some sort of tribe in Egypt. And so we had to have our last names changed to Moreau. And so he created a whole religion based off of that.
And then what? How many people at its peak were in the House of Moreau?
So to be honest with you, I'm not really sure. I do know that he was trying to recruit a lot of people, but it was mostly women. So we constantly had women coming in and out of the house, and he would marry them. They would be like our second mothers, and sometimes they would have children. And I didn't realize until much later that he would purposefully target women with children because he was a pedophile, and so it was easier for him to have access to those, especially the daughters, through the mothers.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
Okay. Wow.
You're just pausing for a second. You're like, where do
Yeah.
I go with this?
Yeah.
So, all right, you were born into this then,
Mhm.
right? Because what in the order you said he and your mother had 13 children.
Yeah, so she met him when I was 1, and then together they immediately start having children. He wanted to, as he would constantly say, spread his seed as far as possible. So he would have children with my mother and then have children outside of the marriage. So it was just a lot of kids that he would have.
How long were you in this cult for?
So I was able to essentially escape at 18.
You were in there for that long.
Mhm.
So the entirety of you being in this cult, were you aware that this was kind of fucked up and weird?
Oh yeah. So we were homeschooled, and so everything was we were pretty isolated. And we weren't really allowed to have that much contact with my mother's family. My mother's family knew that there were things going on, but they really couldn't do anything about it. And so he kept us away from them. So we would constantly move all the time. We would move, and I thought like, and it would just be so sudden. Like there wasn't ever really like, we never got heads up. Like sometimes we'd wake up and my mother would be like, "Okay, yeah, we're moving next week," and then we'd have to like pack everything up and move. I didn't know until later that was because people were calling CPS, and
Right. Like
so
the neighbors and stuff were figuring it out. Yeah.
yeah, and
Yeah.
like I'm sure they saw things, and but because we were homeschooled and we weren't allowed to have access to like the outside world, everything was pretty curated because he didn't want us to be influenced by anything outside of what he was brainwashing us to
Right.
believe.
Right. Because information is like the
It
like
was dangerous.
right. And they don't like information. They don't like when you research. They don't want you to go to college. They want you to stay in the
Mhm.
cult. Um, are your this might get a little personal, but
It's okay.
of the I mean, you had 13 siblings that were also raised in this cult. Are any
Yeah.
of them still in it? Or
So, I was the first one to leave and, like, cut contact off, and because I was, like, the first one to leave, and I do understand this in a lot of ways. We're only half siblings, so I'm my mother's daughter, and then, he was their father as well. And so I was immediately ostracized. So, they would say things like, oh, she's a virus, she's a disease to the family. And so I wasn't allowed to have contact with them whatsoever. And so while they were saying that I was like this terrible person because I defied him, unfortunately, there is still a lot of brainwashing. Like they still remained in contact with them. And I think deep down inside, they knew that this was incredibly toxic and destructive, but I think a lot of it just had to do with the fact that it I think it's like Stockholm syndrome, it's trauma bonding, and that was all we knew. All growing up, we were taught that there's them and then there's us and that we have each other and the outside world is bad and that it was just framed around this idea of being of love and protection when really it was just the complete opposite.
What were some of the rules or beliefs that your stepfather was instilling on you all?
So, okay, so for one, so I'm the oldest of four girls. So having four girls in the house, we were essentially raised to be wives. So at the age of 7, I had to learn how to cook, clean, change diapers, get up in the middle of the night and, feed my siblings bottles. And so our entire identity was being a housewife. So everything was like pretty much like on a strict schedule. So we had to get up at a certain time. There was a point where we had to learn how to belly dance so that when we got so that when we got married, we knew how to please our husbands.
wait, wait, hold on, pause. Wait, 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 hold
Am I
on.
doing something wrong?
This
Am I supposed to belly dance
what
for my husband?
belly dance like Indian kind of belly like with the
Yeah.
Probably
And
because your stepfather thought it was hot, and so he thought that
I think so, like and then I don't really remember this, but, like, I think my brain blocked out a lot of things. Like, I learned later that we were, like, made to watch fellatio videos on like which was so odd because we weren't really allowed to learn much about like our bodies. Like everything was just like we were just like products basically. Dating was out of the question. And in fact, like we were raised to maintain our virginity so that when they found us a husband, he could give us away for a certain amount, like having like a dowry, basically. Like he was obsessed with that. So I remember growing up and going being allowed to go to grocery stores because honestly, going to grocery stores and just being out of the house was just it was an adventure for us because we were so isolated. So going to a grocery store or a library, anything to be away from the house was like, oh my God. But there'd be times where he would like approach like a random guy and say, hey, like my daughters are coming of age. And
like,
yeah,
how
he
old
was
was the
a
guy?
random person. He would just go to
it was a grown man. And we were like under the age of 16.
so
So
that's what I was curious about was like if he's building a cult and his cult's basically the people in his house or his expansion, who is he marrying you to? But he's basically raising you as property and trying to sell you
yeah.
to the highest bidder.
Hmm.
That's wild. This is
Yeah.
in the how many years ago was this, by the way, when you left?
What? Wait. So I left when I was 18. So let's see. I'm 33 now. I can't do math.
Okay, no,
Okay,
that's good
okay.
enough.
Like 'cause I
Good
What
mean,
is
enough
but
for
that?
this is
me.
like the mid
12.
2000s that this is happening.
Yeah.
Jesus
All over and like
Christ!
you're moving all across the US. So this is happening in the US.
Hmm.
Did
That's
any of these
crazy.
guys, like, out in the wild, would they ever, like, listen to your dad and be like, "Oh, cool, okay, yeah, like, I'm interested," or were they, like, disgusted, or how did other people react to his
I honestly don't remember. He would have friends come over, and this was like another thing too. So he would have friends come over, and so my mother wasn't allowed to be in the room if he had friends over. So she would always like be in her room. And so whenever my stepfather like needed something, like a glass of water, or I had to like cook and then like serve him, I had to be the one to serve him and his friend. So I had to be like yeah, it was like I had to be it was almost like he was trying to like shop me. And I remember one time I overheard a conversation between him and his friend and I was like walking by or something and he looks at me and goes, "Yeah, Yahweh, that's like my real name." He's like, "Yeah, she's more of a commercial beauty." And they were like both looking at me, and I just remember feeling so disgusted and, like, icky. So I don't really know what that whole thing was about.
What does that even mean? You're I'm
I don't
Commercial
so
even
like
know.
dating.
like you like she's marketable, she's top shelf kind of?
I guess, I don't know.
Yeah, she's cover girl material.
Do you know if he was ever able to successfully transact someone?
I'm not sure. I don't know. And I remember at one point, and so we spent a lot of time in our rooms, like sometimes days in our rooms, we weren't allowed to leave, like not even to use the restroom. And there was one point, I think I was maybe around 7 or 8, and there was these two teenage girls that were in the house. And they were in the house for I probably like a good week or so. And I was confused because it was a 3 bedroom or 2 bedroom, something like that. But it was like 5 of us, 2 of them. So I had a feeling that the girls were staying in their room. I don't know. I have like all these like kind of theories, like maybe he was like pimping them out or like whatever it was, because the girls were prostitutes. Like, they were working girls. So I don't know if he was like their pimp or like what, but they were in the house, and there was like a very brief moment where I interacted with them. I was probably, like I said, around like 7 or 8. And then even I kind of knew a little bit what was going on, but not completely. I
And
mean,
these girls were girls from, like, the outside that,
yeah.
like, weren't a part of the family?
No, yeah, they were from the outside.
How
So
m
I think there were girls that they picked up on the street, to be honest with you.
were there a lot of people in this cult?
So it was in and out, mostly women. And then sometimes like he would have like gatherings. So sometimes it would be like couples, sometimes it would be men, sometimes it would be women. I didn't know exactly like what they were talking about, but they would be at the house for hours. So I don't know what all was going on. If I had to guess, a lot of it was transactional, him trying to figure out how to get money or sell women's body. Like he was very much like obsessed with, I guess, like subjugating women, profiting off of them. I mean, in his eyes, like we were property. So
Damn, it
Jesus
kinda the crazy
Christ.
thing is, like, I'm sitting here and I'm listening to her, and, like, it sounds like Diddy. It sounds like
I
it
we
sounds like, kind of
Yeah.
like, he was doing it at a much higher level, but it sounds the
mhm.
same way. Alright, when do you so, 1, I see you. Thank you for opening up about
Yeah, of
this. It's
Yeah,
kinda
thank
course.
crazy
you.
because I've never heard a story like this from first person.
Right. Me
Um
neither.
Yeah.
How old were you? And I also just want to acknowledge you because I bet it's not easy to leave something like that. Like you spent your whole life in it. It's the same thing when people do leave a religion that's been that
Mhm.
controlling, or when you're Amish, right? For example, there was like a show a while ago that was like people who were Amish that went to Hollywood and what
Mm.
that drastic shift was like. It's not
Yeah.
easy. I'm curious for you, like how old were you when you decided, hey, I'm gonna get the fuck out of here? And what gave you the courage to leave in the first place?
Yeah, so to be honest with you, I've always known that I was destined for way more than what I was being brainwashed to believe. We weren't allowed to question anything, and I've always been like a very curious person. So I started seeing, I think from the age of 7, 7 to 8, I started to see a lot of like contradictions. So, like for instance, my stepfather was incredibly racist. Like he specifically it was just very odd. Like, he specifically hated, like, white people, but then he also hated Africans. But the thing that never made sense to me was that he would cheat on my mother with white women, and then at one point, they had, like, a white girlfriend. But then he hated white people, and then I was confused too because, like, my mother, I come from my family's Creole, so I come from a pretty, like, mixed background, and so, like, my mother's pretty she's pretty light, like, and, people would think that she was, like, Armenian or something like that, like, she would always get mistaken for. And so, yeah, he was, like, super racist, so I started questioning that. Right around that time, I also started to have questions about my sexuality. So, being raised in a homophobic, household, it was just very confusing, because he hated gay men. He felt that it was like a huge sin. Like he was literally obsessed. Like in fact, I would listen to him rant about how disgusting gay men are, right? But then he'd be like, "Oh, it's okay if a woman is with a woman as long as she's with a man." Like he only believed in like
Oh.
polygamy if a man has like multiple women. And so that was sort of like a thing as well. But then I was confused as well because like I knew my mother was not into women, but he would basically force her to be in these like relationships with women. So I started questioning a lot of things, and then, because I wasn't allowed to question or or be curious, I would get beaten as a punishment. And so I started to internalize a lot of things. And then the older I got, the more I just started to feel like this like angst, right? And then when I became a teenager, I started, like developing like, I became like 12. I had a lot of confusion and a lot of questions about my gender identity because I saw how my stepfather would treat women, and I knew that whatever that was, I didn't want to be that. And so I started having these ideas of like maybe I'm trans. Like I started feeling like I am trapped in the wrong body. And I didn't know what trans was. Like I didn't have like the vocabulary for it. I just knew that whatever that my outside was, it didn't align with how I was feeling. And so I would try to like have conversations about this with my mother, and of course I would always get shut down. And then the more I got shut down, the more I just started to have all these questions. And so the library was my freedom. She never checked any of the books that I would rent out. So I was so curious. I would just like start getting books, whatever that I found was attractive to me, I just got it and then I'd read it. I wouldn't half the time I wouldn't even know what the book was about, but I would read it and it was a lot of like adult books. And reading these like really opened my mind. And then I really started to get into like music, and I wasn't even the music was super curated too. Like I wasn't allowed to listen to Jimi Hendrix or the Beatles, but when they weren't around, that's what I was listening to. I was listening to Green Day, Jimi Hendrix, the Beatles, and that opened up a whole other world for me too. And I just started having like it just opened my mind to so many different ways of thinking, and I really felt that I aligned with them. And then it wasn't until I like it just the more angst I got, the more I think they started to sense that I wasn't really listening to their bullshit. Like none of it just made sense, and they were still trying to like sell me basically, or like, profit off of me. And in my mind I was just like, "No." And then there was this thought, and there's just like this voice in the back of my head that was just always telling me like, "No, like you are destined for so much more." And that basically drove me to what ended up being basically the last straw was when I was 17, or maybe about like 16, they realized that I was a really talented artist. And so would start painting. And so they would take my paintings to like galleries, right? To try to like make me into like this big painter. And then around that time too, they also discovered that I could draw, that I could sew. And so they enrolled me into art school. So I was enrolled to study fashion design. The last day, I think it was, like, the last day before, like, what is it, like, summer break,
Uh-huh.
or maybe it was, like, a few days before or something like that, I don't remember, but it was, like, getting close to that point. I'm on my way walking to class, and I see this and I meet this woman stops me, it was at the Pike Place Market, and she was, like, a vendor at this, like, fruit shop. She stops me, and we just start having a conversation. This is my first time ever, like, really having a conversation. I was incredibly awkward. Like, I really had a very difficult time forming full sentences because I was so isolated. I didn't know at the time too that I was autistic and I had ADHD. Like, I had a lot of things, and I just kind of chalked up to me being incredibly awkward. But when I was talking to her, I felt so comfortable with her, and she was like asking me questions like, "Oh, like, do you go dancing?" Like all these things that I've never done. I think I was around 17 or just about to turn 18, and then I kind of realized, like, I'm actually almost an adult. Like, I've never done adult things. All I've done was cook, clean, take care of kids, study. That was it. And then we exchanged information, and it hit me as I was like walking to class. I was like, "Oh my gosh, she's flirting with me." And I've never had a woman like flirt with me before, and there was definitely like a mutual attraction. Long story short, I secretly was talking to her. Like we would text back and forth, and then I was like, wow, I was really starting to like feel something. And I knew that in order for me to like be with her, I had to tell my mother and my stepfather. And so she and I kept talking. I found out later that she has a husband, or they weren't like actually married, but they were like together. Basically, they were living together. And I was relieved because I knew that that would be the only way that I could be with her because she had a
Oh,
man.
because that was part of his rule.
Mhm.
Like, you can be with a woman as long as you're
As long as
yeah.
the man is there.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
So I tell my mother, I said, "Hey, I met this woman. I really want to see like where this goes. Is it okay if, I could go out with her?" And then I tell her that, she has a husband, so like blah blah. And so they agreed. They come over to the house, and it was just so fucking awkward because it was just me and the two of them just like talking. But again, like I really didn't know how to talk or have conversations. So I would ask her a question and he would answer her. And so I knew right away, I was like, oh my God, this reminds me of my stepfather. Very controlling, very just like, and there was just something about him that I did not like. I just felt, I got like evil vibes. Like he reminded me of my stepfather. And so I knew right away, we talked for about an hour. And I remember at one point he gets up and goes and speaks to my stepfather. And she's talking to me, but I'm like listening to him because I could hear them on the front porch and they're discussing anal sex with me. My stepfather's telling him like, I don't even remember what it was, but I was like, and I'm a virgin. What the fuck? Like,
Wait, was he kind of asking your dad if you would be open to that or if
I
that was an
guess, but they were
option?
like, I don't remember exactly what the details were, but they were discussing, don't be too rough with her or I don't remember what it was, but I just overheard them discussing it. And I was like, oh, fuck no. And so they leave
It
and
almost sounds like another cult came in to, like, converse you from this other cult to
mhm.
is that what kinda
That's
what
exactly what it was.
Oh
So
my god.
he had his own like thing, and basically it was like I met my stepfather, but in a different font, basically. So the meeting ends, right? They're on their way home. I say goodbye, and then the guy's like, "Hey, just like keep me in mind, okay?" But in my mind, I'm like, "Absolutely not."
Right.
So they leave. My stepfather pulls me to his side. He's like, "So what'd you think?" And I was like, No." And then my stepfather was like, "Yeah, okay, good. Yeah, yeah." I was thinking the same exact thing. But the thing is, my stepfather was full of shit, totally full of shit. So I was like, okay, he kind of believes me, but okay, fine. 2 days later, I text her and I said, "Hey, I really loved getting to know you. I just don't think this is gonna work. I can't be with him, but I would love to remain friends. And I want to talk about it. Like maybe we can go and like meet for coffee or something." So she was like, "Yeah, sure." We were supposed to meet 2 days later. So the 2 days happen. I go over. I don't hear from her at all. I text her, don't hear back. I go by to her place 2 days later. She's not there. And I asked her coworkers, I'm like, "Hey, like, have you heard from her? Have you heard from Sakara?" And she's like, "You haven't heard?" And I was like, "Heard what?" "She's gone." And after that, everything was just kind of like a
Wait.
blur,
She was
dead. Like she was dead.
How what happened?
So I didn't know. I didn't know what happened. So I go back to class, but everything is just like, I don't even remember. I think I completely like blanked out. I come home. I tell my stepfather what happened. The first thing he asked me is, "Did you cry?" And I was just like, I was so upset. Like I had been crying. Like I was a mess. And then on my birthday,
wait. So he was gonna be pissed off that you were crying or something? Or why would he even ask that question?
I have no idea.
'Cause he's fucking weird?
I have no idea. It was the
I
first
know
thing
I'm
he
sitting
asked
here
me.
trying to find logic in
Yeah,
it.
no, you can't find logic
Well,
in this fucker.
okay, cool. I think cult leaders have logic. Their
No, I'm just
logic's
mad.
just fucked up. But
Yeah, nothing he did really made sense. Like he didn't ask me, "Oh, are you okay?" Like the man had zero empathy, like zero. The first thing he asked was, "Oh, did you cry?" And so I'll never forget this. On my birthday, so this was like right before I turned 18. So I was born October 5th. October 5th, this article comes out from Seattle. I think it was on The Stranger. Someone, a reporter, was there and they took photos. Yeah, they took photos of her. She had been strangled and they took photos of her. I saw the photos and then I read the article and it was even more traumatizing because the way that they like sensationalized it and like almost tried to make it like poetic, completely forgetting that she was like a human being. And so I'm reading this article. I go on Facebook and her family's like trying to figure out. They found me. I was like one of the last people that they spoke to. So they were like trying to figure out who I was. The cops somehow got involved, but I wasn't really allowed to like speak to them because I had just turned 18. It was like a whole thing. And then her man, I guess, was a suspect apparently, and he was still trying to like get in contact with my stepfather. It was a huge mess. And so my stepfather blamed me. He was like, "You should have known that she was, going to herself." They ruled it as a suicide. Yeah, it was a whole thing. And so that was the last straw. And so
Did you believe your stepfather when he said that? Like, did a part of you feel guilty or were
I
you like,
did. I
"Really?
did.
Fuck."
And that was when I had like my second attempt of suicide. I tried to like walk in front of traffic because I just felt guilty and I felt like she and I had like really connected. Everything just like fell apart. Like I just couldn't be normal. I cried all the time. Like I just wasn't everything. I internalized a lot of it. And then a few months later, I end up meeting this guy. Then they were like, okay, you need to get the fuck out of here, basically. And so I ended up getting kicked out, basically, or I made it so that I got kicked out because otherwise they wouldn't have let me leave.
Mhm.
I couldn't cook, I couldn't clean, I couldn't do anything. He's like, you're a virus to the family, get out. And so I had to go live with my grandfather for a little bit. And then I moved in with my biological father, who I'd only met when I was 16. And so that was a whole other thing
So
too.
you're all right. So I mean, there's a lot to unpack here, right?
Yeah.
So one, this is something I want to say real fast, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So I think sometimes when people hear stories like this and you say, well, the last straw was this, and you tell this like crazy, this insane story, right?
Mhm.
And I think it'll be really easy for people to say, oh, that was the last straw. She should have known better. I would have left way before that. But like those people don't know what it's like
Yeah, they
to be
don't.
raised in a household where everything is controlled, where you don't have access to information, where you're
Mhm.
afraid. Your mom's there too, and you don't want to abandon your mom. So there's a lot of stuff that goes into it, and it does take a ton of courage. It also sounds like it's awesome that your family met you in it. Like you had a place to go and they welcomed you in immediately, right? Like your
Yeah.
grandfather. Is your mom still with him?
Oh, no, he died actually last year. Um, Ironically, he died on World Peace Day.
Oh, okay.
I know.
Is
And
it
to be
is it
honest with you,
appropriate to be happy about
oh
that?
no, I
Is
was
that okay?
I don't
honestly,
know.
when I found out that
Mm.
he died, I was legit kind of pissed because so growing up, okay, so for one, I used to believe he would tell us that he could like read our minds, right? So I was afraid to think anything bad about him. I thought that if he knew that I wanted him to die, that he would basically beat me to death. I mean, we were getting beaten to death, half to death anyway. But I was like, oh my god, if he knew that I wanted him dead, like it's over for me, right? And so when I was like finally away from them, of course, it took a lot of deprogramming and like I was like, and then I knew like, okay, this man cannot read minds. Like he even told us that he could control the weather. And he would, oh my God, it was so insane. Like he really believed that he was like this all-powerful God, right? And so for 10 years, I had fantasized about because they were cokeheads too, like major, major drug addicts, like huge. And I would fantasize about them being sold drugs laced with fentanyl
Mhm.
and that they would both, because my mother, she's not innocent, like she's just as guilty. But him, I really wanted to witness and relish in his suffering. And so I had this like fantasy of him being sold fentanyl and then basically ending up paralyzed to the point where, you know, he's stuck in a wheelchair for
Yeah.
life.
You want him to suffer.
Oh, yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And then I would somehow be, like, involved where I would Google the worst rated hospice home or something like that, where they like, like and then, I would come and visit, but, like, mainly to instruct, like, the caregivers to, like, starve him to the brink of death and then feed him just enough to keep him
Wow.
alive.
I'm loving
So you're like,
this.
he's gonna end
Yeah.
up in a wheelchair, then I'm gonna put him in the
Uh-huh.
worst home I can
Yep.
find.
Uh-huh.
Let him sit in his, filthy diaper for weeks on end, and then yeah, I really wanted him to suffer, like,
Mhm.
I thought jail would be or prison would be too I mean, he should have been in prison a long time ago, I mean, especially for being with minors, there was just so many things that he did that he just got away with, and I was like, prison was just too kind, like, in fact, because he was also closeted homosexual, like, he would have been heaven, you know?
Were you guessing that, Layla,
Oh,
the whole
yeah.
time?
Yeah,
Totally.
the
Because why
second.
would you be so against it in the first
Right.
place?
Mhm.
Right.
It's kind of crazy. Like you see this in movies sometimes where they finally find the villain and then they're like, yeah, just kill me. And they're like, no, 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 that's too easy for you.
Mhm.
Like you gotta
Mhm.
go through the torture and the suffering.
Mhm.
What okay, so how do you that's a lot, right? Thank you for
Yeah.
sharing all
Oh, yeah,
this.
of course.
How do you even start to unpack that, right? Like you left, it seems like you've done a lot of work. What
Mhm.
is the work though? Because I don't even know how you get past half of what you went through.
So after I left my biological father's house, I ended up moving in with that guy, the one that basically was like, they're like, okay, we're done. You're out of here. I ended up living with him, and he had a lot of similarities
I'm
to my
scared. I knew it. I
stepfather.
was gonna call it.
Yeah.
I was gonna call it because we always end up with like some version of our parents unless we do our work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you sourced two people back to back that were similar.
Yep.
Did this guy suck too?
Yeah, he was terrible.
Is he dead?
No, I don't even know.
Okay.
I'm not even
I don't even
laughable. I can't
know.
even laugh at this. I'm
Can
looking at
I
our
fantasize
producer
about
like,
killing him?
can't wish,
Okay.
can't wish
Did you
this.
do like therapy?
So I didn't do therapy literally until 3 years after I moved here. So I want to say like about 4 years ago was when I went to therapy. Yeah, about 4 years ago. And so he oh my gosh, and even that relationship that I had with that guy was also just a huge transformation. It was like the catalyst for like a completely different movement in my life. So like being told that my only worth was, to be with a man and to be subservient, and I was a huge pick me. I like as much as I hated my mother, I found that I was like essentially slowly becoming her. Like I was with this terrible man that was abusive. He would cheat on me a lot. He would constantly disrespect me. I was working, basically paying all the bills. Like I did everything. Luckily, we broke up. But before that happened, we almost got married. In fact, I bought the marriage license. We showed up to the courthouse. I had my friends, I had my witnesses with me. I had my wedding dress on that I made. We show up to the courthouse. I hand the lady the license. She looks at it and goes, "This expired yesterday." And he and I had been together for like 2 years, I think, at that point. And it was like the universe was like doing everything it possibly could to make sure that I did not end up with this guy. I got pregnant by him. I ended up having a miscarriage. We were not able to get married. And then I felt so worthless because I thought that I was damaged goods because I lost my virginity to him. And so, to come from that household and then end up in another like toxic situation, it was all I knew. And all I wanted was to be loved. That left me open to being taken advantage of. And so when he and I broke up, I really had to sit with myself, and I waited a few months, and then I downloaded a dating app and had my first one night stand. At that time, he'd been the only guy that I'd been with. And together we were seeing like other women. 'Cause I knew that I loved women, but I was like, okay, I need to like, like figure this out. And so I was a huge slut, like huge. I basically fucked sometimes I went from like being with one guy for like 4 years to sometimes it's three guys a day.
Was that because, like, you felt sexually liberated, or was it because you were trying to heal
It
something?
was
Like,
both.
okay.
Yeah, it was both. Like
Wait, 3 guys, how are you even finding 3 guys a day?
online.
Oh,
It
yeah,
was easy.
give us a
Yeah.
second. Like, hand me a phone.
It
What?
was it was pretty easy for me, and, like, I was just oh my god, it was insane. And then after a few months, I was like, "Eh, this is kinda boring." And then one day, I was working at Nordstrom, and I overheard these girls talking about sugar dating, and I was like, "Wait, you can get paid for this? Like, you can get" meanwhile, I was just, like, slinging it out for free, basically. And then I discovered sugar dating, and then I discovered escorting, and that quite literally changed my life. I was the one with the power, and it just changed everything. But I realized that I had a lot of emotional turmoil to work through. I had very, very low self-esteem, very low sense of self-worth. I was still chasing love. Like I still needed to feel worthy. Yeah. And then I got into drugs. Then I became like a functioning alcoholic. Like I was a mess. And I didn't know that all of the things that I was feeling, I was really just trying to like bury and shove. And yeah, my life was spiraling, but I was still somehow intact in a lot of ways. Like I was traveling, I was seeing the world for the first time. I was having all these amazing experiences, but internally I was really struggling. And then when I went to therapy, I had my first session. I realized like, oh my God, like there's a lot to work through. I basically got re-traumatized again when I had my first session, and I was like telling my therapist like what was going on. And her face was like the whole time. And I'm like, holy shit,
She's
maybe
like,
what
"Hold on, let me grab a drink." Yeah.
Uh-huh. I always feel like it's bonus points when my therapist is like, "Oh my gosh." I'm like, "Yeah, right?"
and I was like, maybe things are a lot worse than I thought they were because
Mm.
this was my reality. And in fact, I didn't even know that I was in a cult until about a year after I moved to LA, and I read about the rainbow children.
Yep.
Heath, oh fuck, what's his name? Heath Le-
Ledger.
Not
yeah,
That's an actor.
No,
yeah,
Heath
yeah.
Ledger's an
Oh,
actor.
is
Yeah,
that
No,
him?
yeah, yeah.
Oh,
So yeah, he was in a cult, and then the what's his name? The guy, the Joker,
that's
Heath
Heath
Ledger.
Ledger.
and but no, but also Phoenix,
Oh,
Oh,
Joaquin Phoenix.
Joaquin Phoenix. Yeah,
Yeah, he seems like he's in a cult though.
yeah. So he was. Aren't they related or something? I don't even know.
Joaquin Phoenix and Heath Ledger? We'd have to look that
we'll fact check
the
that.
producer says
Yeah,
no. We'd have to look that up, but I didn't know they were cult survivors.
yeah. Hmm.
Um,
I have a question.
what
Oh, sorry.
was
Okay, I don't want my ADD to lose it. Um, it's probably gone already. You said escorting to you felt like, do you kind of feel like you reclaimed a lot of yourself and your sexuality and that felt really good to you?
Yes, to a certain degree. I mean, I was still very much like an alcoholic and a drug addict, so I was gone pretty much the entire time. Like I just was not there mentally. But when I would have these moments of like clarity where I'm like, wow, like this is the first time in my life that I'm actually being taken care of. Like someone's actually like compensating me for my time. Whereas from the time I was 7 years old, all I was taught to do was to be of service, to
Mhm.
cook, clean, take care of kids, serve a man, basically be like my mother. I never thought to be the one to be taken care of. And luckily, like I never had an experience where I was abused by these men except for when I was like, okay, this is transactional. So I want to date. Like I wanted to date for love. And then I would meet a guy, we'd start dating, and then they'd start abusing me. And then I'd go right back to
Right.
dating
You're
sugar
repeating the same
dating.
pattern over and over again.
Mm.
Mhm.
Right. As we all do. Are you in a relationship right now?
No, I'm in a relationship with money.
Yes, girl. I love that.
Yeah, because it's like the way that I view relationships, I still do it. Like I still, I believe that relationships should be mutually beneficial. I consider myself like a professional companion. Like men do pay for my company. I get paid to go on dates and things like that. And I really enjoy it. There's like, I mean, of course you can't really put a price on like a person, but doing this has allowed me to have freedom and to pursue things that are really important to me, like building a sexual wellness organization to help others who've also gone through trauma.
What's it called?
It's called Dalier.
Cool.
So I'm like really big into like basically combining sexual wellness and healing of trauma with like somatic therapy because they're all
Oh my
connected.
gosh, my therapist has been begging me to do somatic therapy for like 6 years.
Mhm.
So we're gonna talk
You
about
have to
that.
do it.
I don't even what is like I know that's like totally off topic and we're gonna run out of time soon, but I want to talk about that with you
Yeah.
later because I don't really even know
Well,
what that
why
means.
haven't you done if your therapist has been wanting you to do
I
it for
feel like I
6
do
years, why haven't
so
you?
much therapy. I'm doing like EMDR, CBT, like I'm doing all different forms of therapy that sometimes I almost feel like I overdose on therapy where I'm like, am I hurting myself even more by just like reliving stuff? But
Mm.
I hold so much of my anxiety like in my
Yeah, bye-bye.
body.
Yeah.
I'm so twitchy. Like ask Brian. I'm like, I'm so jumpy. And he has to be like, can you fucking take a deep breath? And I'm like, I'm not doing it on purpose. So I hold so much trauma still like physically in my body. And a part of
Mhm.
me like thinks that somatic therapy is a little woo-woo.
I
But
understand.
so I don't know. I'm gonna talk to you more about it and have you convince me to do
Yeah.
it.
No, I totally get it. And actually that is how I got into like really started being more mindful about sex work and kink was because I've been abused for pretty much my entire life and being in abusive relationships. I also held a lot of trauma in my body. And so that affected how I looked at sex. And the first time that I really realized, like, okay, there's a lot of work to be done was when I went to my first play party and discovered kink for the first time.
And when was that?
This was 2021. I went to
Okay.
my first like play party and it quite literally changed my life. Oh my God. Like
Yes.
I didn't realize how much I was dissociating during sex. Like, and even then, even when I first started like escorting and being a sugar baby, I still kind of thought that sex was something that was done to me, not something that I was an active participant of. And so kink gave me autonomy. I learned what consent was. I learned how to say no and actually mean it. I learned how to check in with my body, whereas before I had no autonomy. And like I said, growing up, like I was taught that my body was someone else's property, and I internalized that.
Wait, let's back up for a second because I wanted to like feel real and relevant. So like
Mhm,
when you were the client, before you started going to the parties and discovered King,
mhm.
would you just basically, hey, you pay me for the time, we'll do whatever you want to do.
Yeah.
I'm here to serve. And then afterwards, did it shift? Like you have control over what you agree to and you don't agree to, or
Yeah, I mean, these guys are like pretty vanilla. They just like either they want to take me out or like sometimes it is like a date. I think that at that time, before I was like fully conscious and aware of it, I just looked at it as like, someone is paying me for my time, so therefore I'm the one that's in control of this. And I mean, like I said, luckily I've never had an experience where my boundaries were crossed, but they would always get crossed when I would date with the intention of love, right? And I would always find myself overextending and overgiving because I still kept thinking that I needed to work work to be loved or to prove myself or to overgive or to overextend to be loved. Whereas with the client, it's like they kind of like worshiped me.
Mhm.
And so I didn't really need to do much. And so I think that that sort of the difference between me dating for love and me dating for financial, and I did really like these people. Like there was definitely like a connection, but it would always change when I would date for love. And so I had to really work on that dynamic.
Kink for me has cured so much trauma.
Mhm.
Which I, because I've said this before on the pod a billion times, but I thought kink, like BDSM, was about pain and
Mhm.
liking pain, and I don't really like pain. But having that, it's about like a power exchange and about a
Mhm.
control thing. And so I was able with my dom to reenact a time where I was raped and held hostage. And so I was able to reenact that with him where I had full control, but also like not as much control. And I was able
Yeah.
to go into a subspace and relive it to where that particular situation that I did 10 years of EMDR, like, every week
Oh,
for, like,
wow.
2 hours at a time because I it was controlling me. One session with him for that, I'm cured.
Oh my
Straight
god.
up cured.
Yeah.
So have you had similar experiences where you've, like, reenacted some, like, traumatic situations or
So to relate to you, my first like true experience was with a dom, and it was the first time in my life that there was an actual intention. Like I never had someone ask like, "What do you want? And is this okay?" Like before we met online on this like dating it was like a sugar dating website, and so we spent about a month chatting back and forth about what I wanted to experience, what my experiences were in terms of like trauma. And it was the first time that I ever like had to sit and think like, oh, okay, that's interesting. And so we finally met, and I knew that I knew that I wanted to explore things, but I also knew that I didn't want to be held back by my trauma. And so one of the first things that he asked me was if I was okay with being spanked or being flogged. And I thought about it, and at first I was like, no. But then later I was like, wait, why not? Because my stepfather used to beat the fuck like out of me, and so in my mind, I thought that being flogged and being whipped was a reenactment of that trauma. So I thought about it and I was like, you know what? I want to try it, right? And so this was in February. So I was like, okay, we'll wait until after Black History Month. Cause he was like a white guy. So I don't know why I had this thing.
Wait, what? You- oh, you wanted to do like a race play, kink?
No,
Oh,
but I just like
it just didn't feel right. It wasn't the
yeah, I
time.
didn't feel
It
didn't
right.
feel
wasn't
This
the
right
month.
during Black History Month to do it?
yeah,
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah,
wasn't
yeah,
the
yeah,
month.
yeah,
because
yeah,
it was
yeah,
like
yeah.
my first like experience being like whipped
Mhm.
and being
You're like,
flogged.
this is not what Martin Luther King died
And
for.
then I was like,
Yeah.
and I wanted to be respectful to like, I don't even
Yeah,
fucking know
yeah,
what I
yeah.
was thinking.
Harriet and all of them. Yeah. Get that?
And so in March, we had like our in March we had our first session, and yeah, he brought out the flog, he brought the flogger, and and so he was like, "Are you ready?" He's like, "Are you sure about this?" And I'm like, "Yes, okay." And he does it right, and surprisingly, I was like, "Wait, I kind of like this." I didn't have flashbacks, like I didn't have like I wasn't taken back to like it was almost like they were completely separate events, right? And then that's when I knew. I was like, "Oh my god, so this means I have healed." And just like our session, and actually he was the first one to ever give me an orgasm. First
Yes.
one ever. I thought
Mhm.
that I was having orgasms, but like I learned later that I was like really good at faking it. Um
Same. Guys were like, "Did you come?" I'm like, "I think
yeah,
so."
yeah.
Like,
Yes. It was I mean, I
Mhm.
cried. Like I was like, "Oh my god." And then and then because he was like pretty much my first for a lot of things. And yeah, it was really wonderful. And then I found myself later becoming a little bit too attached to him because he was my client. So yeah, and so that was interesting too. And it just really inspired me to start exploring more and more. And kink has helped me so much. Like I'm still exploring a lot of things. And I learned that if you're doing it with intention and doing it in a way where you're more in tune and intact with your body instead of just going about it and just like doing it because you think that that's what the other person wants, like really connecting to self is so important, especially for people who've gone through trauma and they want to explore kink. I really recommend like doing research and then really becoming connected to your body, whether it's body mapping, trying to figure out okay, like how do my knees feel, learning how to name sensations, right? I really had to do that first and then able to explore kink in a way where it wasn't triggered or
Mhm.
triggering.
Well, I had to learn that those acts that my dom was doing, he wasn't doing it to me, he was doing it for me,
Mhm.
right? And my dom asks me, "How do you wanna feel?"
Yeah.
So is there anything that you would like to work on? And my dom, just like yours, he emailed me. He's older. So we're emailing back and forth for like a month,
Mhm.
and he's like, what are your boundaries? And I'm like, I don't think I have any. And he's like,
I
come
used to
back
say
to me
that
when you
too.
have them.
Yeah.
Or like what's a safe word? I'm like, I don't know. He's like, well, you have to pick one. Like
Mhm.
he was very kind of like daddy dom, where he
Yes,
like
that's
takes.
mine too.
Yes,
Yeah.
I
I
love
love
a
him.
daddy dom.
Mhm.
Oh, like I feel so. It's funny that he's pouring wax on me, and like what's it called when they hit your clit with the caning?
Yes. Oh,
Oh,
I haven't done that yet.
oh, it's my favorite. It hurts so fucking good.
Mm.
But, and he'll be like, oh, what are your boundaries? And then he'll ask me later, he's like, is this still a boundary? And I'll be in such a subspace where I'm like, light me on fire. I
Mhm.
don't care. Like, I just love you so much. And he also
Yes.
taught me about aftercare. I
Yes.
was
I
not
never
good at
had that
aftercare.
before. Yeah.
Same. I was not good at aftercare.
Mhm.
And, I've been with my husband forever. And we'll chat a little bit, high five, go get a snack or
You
something.
do
But
not
like,
Mhm.
high five.
I do. I love a
You
good
do
high five
not
after
high
sex.
five,
I
dude.
do. I'm so stupid.
5 out of 5.
And then he asked me, he's like, what kind of aftercare do you want? I was like, I don't want any. He goes, okay, but I do. So he taught me how to give aftercare and how to receive aftercare. So
Mhm.
kink is just
Oh
the
my god.
best.
That's how I know too if it I started it was so he was my first, like, dom, and so I was like, "Okay, I need to find other doms," and so I learned right away to ask because there's so many guys, unfortunately, that say that they're dom.
No, they're just tops.
Yeah,
Mhm.
and then I'd ask, like, "Okay, well, what's aftercare?" And they're like, "What's what?" And then
Oh,
immediately I know right away, like, "Okay, we're done.
right.
Conversation's over."
Yep. Yep.
Sounds like we have a lot of, like, similar
I
experiences.
think we do.
Yeah,
I
I
didn't grow up in
love
a
that.
cult, but Jesus Christ.
Not all of us did. But you know what's so funny is I'm sitting here listening to you. I'm like, there's so many people that would express similar things that you're expressing, but they
Mhm.
wouldn't recognize they were in a cult. Like
Yeah.
there's still people out there that feel like if I'm not a virgin, then I'm worthless. And they
Mhm.
wouldn't say they were raised in a cult, but it has like cult-esque, aspects to it. So I,
Yeah.
I love that you shared that. And then you just share some tips at the end. Before we go though, I
Mhm.
do want you to talk about Dalier,
Yeah.
because it seems like part of your healing process was supporting other people, and
Mhm.
there's also products and stuff. So do you want to share some about that before you go?
Yeah, of course. I
Yeah.
love that. Thank you. Yeah, am I starting it right now?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Okay,
Like
great.
right now. Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
yeah, I love
Share.
You
that.
were so cute. I want to take
Yeah,
her
I'm like
home.
asking you
I just love
on
you.
I
I would
space
love
out
that.
sometimes, and it
Oh,
doesn't.
yeah,
You
I just
can't
didn't know
tell
if
if
you
I'm
meant,
meaning
like,
for the show.
later or
I do mean
after.
right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh my gosh. So actually, Dahlia actually started with the guy that I was with, my very first boyfriend. So quick little thing. So about maybe 6 months to a year that we were together, I discovered that he was wearing my lingerie when I was out of the house. And I knew it was him because, he was like 6'4", I'm 5'3", and I would see it just like strewn in places and it was stretched out. And so I asked him, I was like, "Are you wearing my lingerie?" And because he was super homophobic and like totally in denial, he was like, "Of course not. That's fucking gay." Blah blah blah. And then he finally tells me that he's been wanting to transition to be a woman, and that he's been having questions about his sexuality. And in my mind, I'm like, "Fuck yeah!" Like he's beautiful, right? So I'm like, I get like
You
a
have
husband
both.
and a wife. Yeah, I'm like, I
Yes.
was so excited. Something happened basically where I think that he was expecting me to be totally grossed out or disgusted because the more I started supporting him, the worse he treated me, right? And he started cheating on me with women and then men. I knew he was cheating on me with like some of his friends. I just couldn't prove it. And anyway, I was trying to find lingerie for him to wear. And so, I was looking at Victoria's Secret, but I didn't see lingerie that was catered to different body types. It was all for like cisgendered women. So I remember thinking to myself, and because I was in school for fashion designer and I knew how to sew, I told myself that one day I was going to have my own lingerie brand catered to all body types. So the pandemic happens, everything is shut down. I can't tattoo, I can't do anything. And I was like, okay, what am I going to do with my time? And I decided that I was going to teach myself how to make lingerie. So I bought a machine, bought fabric, all this stuff. I taught myself how to make lingerie. So I made a few different pieces. I created my website and I just had this idea of like, okay, I was going to create a gender inclusive lingerie brand. Then I go to my first play party, discovered kink, met my first dom, and was like, okay, I want to have different accessories. So like kind of like entry level. So like handcuffs, blindfolds, collar and lead. And then I was like, okay, and a vibrator too, a unisex vibrator, and like all these little things, like building this little store and hopefully like expanding it with different products. Because like my goal is to really help create a safe space for people to explore sexuality. Because even for me, like it just wasn't available for me. And at that time too, I'd never even used a vibrator. Like I had a lot of things about like my sexuality. Like it took me a really long time to even accept the fact that I had a vagina. Like when I would sleep with girls, like I would never let them touch me. And now like with kink, I now like embrace so many different parts of me and I want to be able to like be that for other people. And so I decided to start writing articles about my experiences and about sexuality and writing about kink and what it is and providing that education because I think that education, I didn't want to just sell a product, I wanted to educate and create like a community around exploration, especially in a sense of like being trauma informed because I think that trauma, I feel like so many people are affected by trauma and a lot of us don't even realize it. We're so disconnected from our bodies. And kink really, at least for me, and I know this for a lot of people, it really helped center me. It really helped regulate my nervous system. It's like one of the first times I ever felt truly present in my body, and I know that with education, because it's still a very much, like, taboo topic, and even when I just talk to, regular vanilla people and I ask them about kink, they're just like, oh, because they think of, like, 50 Shades of Grey,
Right,
and they
right.
think it's about abuse, and, "Oh, you must be traumatized to like kink," and people still think it's just about sex. It's a spectrum. It's
Yeah.
so far beyond that. BDSM it doesn't even have to involve physical touch.
Mhm.
It could be, sending it could be what do you call it? God, my brain's
Like
blanking right now.
Reiki?
Hmm?
Like, are you getting like just like sending energetic signals into
Yeah,
someone?
it could be energetic signals. It could be role playing, like sending text back and forth. It could be like acts of service. It could be anything. It doesn't have to be, getting tied up and getting,
Right, right.
and yeah, and I want to educate people and show them that BDSM has many, many different layers, many different ways of being, and I want people to explore that. And so that's what Dalier is about.
Love that. Where can people find you?
Yeah, so I have a website. It's called Dalier, so it's www.dalier.com. And then on my personal page, which I kind of like mix with like things that I'm doing, like I'm really big into shibari, so I post a lot of content on that. And so my Instagram for that is Vudu Dahl, and it's VUDU underscore DAHL. And then for my Instagram for my brand, it's Dalier Wellness. So DAHLIER and then underscore wellness.
We'll put
Right.
that in the show notes
Yeah,
too.
Thank
we'll
you.
share all those. We'll tag you. Thanks for being on today.
Yeah,
This has been
thank
we
you.
learned a lot.
No, I don't
Um
want to stop.
and
I
now
want
I
to learn
know, I
more.
know. But okay, but so we now before we started, we said that we've been doing this section called getting off,
Mhm.
right? Where we'll just like rant about something that's been annoying us. And when I dropped it, some guests do it, some guests don't. And you said you actually had one. You
Yeah.
wanted to drop in. So we're gonna, but it's only you only have a minute,
Okay,
and
no
I'm gonna
worries.
cut
Yeah,
you off at
he's
a
gonna
minute.
time you.
So hold
Okay,
on, let
no
me pull my
problem.
timer out. You look into
You can
that.
look at your
You can look into
camera.
that camera.
Okay.
And let me get my stopwatch ready. Okay, so you have a minute to rant about this whenever you're ready.
Okay, awesome. I'm ready.
Go.
Okay, so I'm really big into like butts. Like I'm obsessed with them. Guys butts, girls butts, trans butts, I don't care. I love butts. Like I love everything about it. And I really wish that men were more open and more honest about whether or not they like and enjoy butt stuff. Like I so if I do hook up with a guy, I'm like, "Hey," like I'll ask questions and stuff just to kind of see like where they're at. And all too often, they'll say something like, "Oh, I've never tried that before," or I don't know, it's not really my thing, right?" And then we're hooking up, right? And then 5 minutes into it, they're like, "I'm ready. I'm ready." And I'm like, "Oh, okay." And so I kinda, go back there, I, like, look and, I'm just, like, there. And the biggest thing that I notice is, first of all, it's pristine. Like, not that I'm expecting it to look like horrible, but it's like bleached, it's like waxed, it's like gorgeous. Like, I mean, you could like literally eat off of it. And I'm just like, I just don't know what other reason why it would look this good. And so I know for a fact, yeah, dude, they're definitely doing butt stuff. And it's like, you don't have to lie about it. Like, I'm clearly into it. And I just wish that guys would be more open about it because it's like, what is the big deal? Like, who cares? Like,
That's time.
Stop it.
That's really
It's
good.
so true though. It's so true. I'll talk to guys and I'm like, have you ever had a finger put up your ass
Mhm.
like when, a girl's sucking your dick? And they're like, "Ah, I would never." I was like, then you aren't fucking
But if you thought if
living.
it was a possibility you would do it, you're gonna clean it up. You're gonna
Right.
do the
Yeah.
best you
Yeah. So
can.
this guy's all like, no, me never. And it's like fucking
It's
polyester
probably
doll
worse
asshole.
now.
Yeah, right? I'm like,
They're
damn, it looks better than mine. Like,
they're
Yeah.
like, hey, ChatGPT, how do I prepare for butt stuff?
Right.
Yeah.
That's dope. I love it.
Oh man. All right. Do you have a rant?
I don't remember. You go. You go.
All right, I'm gonna rant, and just so y'all know, I've been in a lot of Ubers and Lyfts recently, and so I have a whole series about things I'm pissed off about Uber and Lyft drivers. Okay, and so this rant is to Uber and Lyft drivers when you pick us up, right? And look, it's not Sunday afternoon, and this isn't your low rider, right? So like I get it, like you have different driving styles, and some of us like to lean back. But if I can't sit in the back without turning my legs sideways, you need to move your shit up, right? Like you're here to service us, right? I got in an Uber the other day with two friends and I had to sit in the middle. And my wife was like, B, you got to sit in the middle because your legs won't fit anywhere else. And that should tell you to move your fucking chair, dude. Like if we're talking about it, we spent 5 minutes on the ride talking about it and you still didn't move your chair. So look, in the future, what I'm doing is I'm actually using the power I have, which is the stars. All right. If I have to tell you to move your seat up, 4 stars.
Oh my God.
Pretty good.
That's
Pretty
fair.
good.
That's
Yeah, no,
fair.
you were very passionate about that.
I'm so
I'm gonna
pissed,
have to
dude.
reduce your audio.
I'm not trying to sit
Holy
like
cow.
this. I'm not trying to sit like this in an Uber.
No,
I
yeah.
paid $60 to get to the airport.
Brian's like, can I remind you all again how tall I am?
Exactly.
Just like this running
That
joke
too.
we have.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm ready.
Go.
Okay. I hate it when people will ask me my age and then they're like, you look so good for your age. Fuck, I'm only 34. So when people are like, I would have never thought you were 34. I'm like, 34 is still young. I don't know. That drives me so fucking crazy. Or if I talk to a Gen Z, oh, forget it. If I talk to a Gen Z, I'm like, I'm 34. They're like, oh, you're so cute. And I'm just like, I'm not old. I'm only 34. So when people say I look good for my age, I'm only 30 fucking 4. I'm not old. Is 34 old? No.
No.
No. Is
I mean,
34
when I
old?
was 20, I thought that was old, but now that I'm there, I'm like, okay.
Oh my gosh. Am I old? And all these
No,
Gen Zers are like, you're old as fuck, bitch. And I'm only 34. So that's really all I had. Just don't tell me I look good for my age. I am good for my age.
And that's time. You
Amen.
age yourself. I mean, I'm like 27. So I don't
Yeah,
know.
shut
I
up.
don't.
I
know what
just
you're
tell
talking
people that I identify as 25 or 26. Like,
There we go.
yeah.
There we go. It's like I identify as Gen Z.
Yeah.
Exactly. Thank you for being on again. This was
Thank
awesome.
you. Thank you
We'd
for
have you
having
back
me.
anytime.
I would
Literally.
love that.
Yeah.
Especially if you convince her to do somatic therapy.
We
Yes.
can,
Then like a
yes.
debrief would be
Yeah,
awesome.
and we could debrief it.
I would really
Okay.
love that. Honestly,
Okay.
like, I thought it was like woo-woo too. And I mean, I haven't, there's so much therapy that I haven't done. I did a lot of talking therapy and I realized that I'm really good at over intellectualizing everything. Like, it's like, I know why I do this and this. And that's why talking therapy didn't really help that much. But when I started taking these classes and reading about it, it was like I was my own somatic therapist. I was like, oh my God, like I never knew what my toes felt like. I never have done body mapping. There was just so much. And there would be times where I would just sit there and I would just be like, oh my God, I've been so disconnected to my body. I can't even imagine all the experiences that I miss out on because I was observing myself, observing myself experiencing something.
I live
Like,
in third person all the
me
time.
Or
too.
you give, or you
Me
give like,
too.
or you give emotions to your body sensations instead of naming the sensation.
Yeah.
So if you're
Yeah.
at like this happens to me a lot when I'm in the when I'm in a training and I'm training someone. I don't even know if we're gonna put this in the episode, right? And I'm asking the guy, I'm like, well, what does it feel like in your belly right now? Because they're
Mhm.
not present, right? And they're like, oh, it feels, and they'll give me like a emotion, like it feels angry. But
Yeah.
like
Mm.
your stomach doesn't feel angry. The physical sensation is what is it? Is it butterflies? Is it
Yes.
tightness? Do you feel heat? And there's a disconnect we often have from like, what does it feel like in your back right now?
Mhm.
And you'll start to say, you know what I'm saying? If
Yeah,
you
I
give your
do.
back feelings that your back's not telling you are there. But
Yeah.
anyway, that's what I'm
I'll-
No,
saying.
you're
Like
so
if she
right.
does
Yeah,
it,
I'm gonna do woo woo with Vudu, and we'll recap it. It'll be
yeah.
good.
All right, we'll come back and do it. Hey, that's it for the first full episode of the Unmasked Project. Thanks for hopping on today. If you like this content, don't forget to like and subscribe. And until we see you next time, try something or try something new.
You say try something or try
Try
something new.
something or try someone new.
Oh, I love that.